There's one game from my childhood that instantly takes me back to the best gaming nights of my life. It wasn't the most popular game, and honestly, it wasn't even that good. But for me and my friend, it was unforgettable. Back then, we dragged our PCs over to one of our houses, set them up side by side, and boom, it was a LAN night. Not many of our friends even had a computer, let alone lived nearby. So it usually ended up being just two of us. Our options were pretty limited. We needed something that worked on LAN and was fun for two players. Of course, Diablo 2 was always number one, but by that time we have beaten it thousands of times. So we start looking for something different, and that's when we found Dungeon Siege. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't some masterpiece, but it was simple, relaxing, and easy to understand. And most important, it worked on LAN. I already made a review on this channel about this game, but it was very old and not on a quality I liked. So I decided to make a new one. Dungeon Siege released in 2002 on Windows PCs by Gas Powered Games and published by Microsoft. Back then, the big action RPG names were Diablo 2 and Baldur's Gate. You had fast-clicking demon slaying on one side and slower story-heavy party adventuring on other. So it's not a surprise that the industry is always following the leaders. So Dungeon Siege was quite heavily inspired by those games. You start the game as a humble farmer. Not a knight, not a wizard, not even a chosen hero. Nope. Just some guy living out in the woods with a hoe and a little shack. But then evil Krog monsters showed up, basically goblins with bad dental plans, and they burn your farm down. Classic RPG motivation. And just like that, you're shoved into an adventure where you gather allies, fight hordes of enemies, and eventually save the kingdom of Ebb from evil overlord. Now let's stop and admire the setup for a moment. Starting as a farmer with a stick is such a simple but genius move. It makes every new piece of gear and skill feel earned. You go from wrecking wolves with a wooden staff to commanding the whole party with fireball swords and bows and armors that looks like it weighs more than you do. It's a great sense of progression, and it's something that Dungeon Siege really nailed. Gameplay wise, if you play Diablo, you feel right at home. You click to move, click to attack, click to pick up loot, click, 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 click. It's a click fest, no denying that. But unlike Diablo, Dungeon Siege has a big trick up its sleeve: seamless loading. Back in 2002, this was mind-blowing. You could walk from one end of a giant world map to other without even ever hitting a loading screen. Just one big continuous world, with caves, towns, forests, deserts and snowy mountains all connected smoothly. This tech came from a custom engine that Gas Powered Games built, and it was a huge selling point. Ads for Dungeon Siege basically shout out no loading screens, like it was a holy miracle. And to be fair, it was. Sure, under the hood it was streaming data constantly. Of course, it wasn't the first game that did this. Back in 1999, Soul Reaver were already using similar technology to achieve the same thing, and it was running on underpowered PlayStation 1 console. The world itself looked nice, not a breathtaking by today's standards, but back then pretty sweet. Rolling hills, waterfalls, deep dungeon full of glowing crystals, lava pits, ruined castles. It had that classic fantasy look nailed down. They really wanted you to feel like you were traveling across an actual land, not just jumping between maps. Another key thing was the party system. Instead of one hero like Diablo, you could recruit companions as you go. At first, you only get this one girl that you can find in the dungeon, first dungeon. Then both of you travel together and finish the dungeon until you go to the first city. In the city, you can find few more recruits and a pack mule. Yes, a mule. And it's awesome. This mule is basically a walking backpack with 4 legs. He will be carrying your all stuff that you find on the ground, and believe me, you will need him. Because in this game, traveling from one town to another or one shop to another is a journey, a really long journey, and it will be a while until you find somewhere to sell your stuff. Every dead monster drops something: rusty sword, a piece of armor, or a bent bow, and the occasionally shiny piece of actual good gear. You will want to pick it all up to sell in the town, and the mule is a lifesaver for hoarding it all. Later on, you meet other characters who can join you: melee fighters, archers, and mages of all sorts. You can have up to 8 people in your party, which makes fighting feel like little war zones. You don't directly control everyone at once, though. You set up formations, give orders, and then they mostly auto-attack. It's kind of like a single-player RTS blended with an RPG. Some people found this a bit boring, since your characters mostly swing or cast automatically once you set them up. But if you enjoy managing a team and watching chaos unfold, it's pretty satisfying. The magic system is fun too. There are 2 schools: combat magic, which is all your fancy fireballs, and nature magic, which is your healing buffs and utility spells. The cool part is that Dungeon Seed doesn't have any character class. You level up skills just by using them. Swing a sword a lot, you get better at melee. Use a bow, you become a marksman. Cast nature spells, you grow as a druid. It's flexible, though it can also lock you in a role if you are specialized too hard. Still, it was pretty neat not having a character build on paper. Just do whatever you like and you will improve naturally. Loot, of course, is another big hook, and Dungeon Siege doesn't hold back on that. You're constantly swimming in new weapons and armors. Most of it is junk, but every so often you find something amazing that makes you feel unstoppable. This aspect makes it very addictable, though maybe not so as tight as Diablo loot system, but still pretty awesome. Sometimes it feels like the game is just throwing random garbage at you, and the shops in town don't help much either. Still, the hunt for that next shiny sword or robe keeps you going. Now the story. Well, it's there. It's not bad, but it's not really the main event. The plot is pretty standard. Dark evil rises, monsters swarm the land, you gather allies, go through the forest, swamps and dungeons, and eventually fight the big bad. There's not much in the way of deep character or moral choices. Your party members don't have much personality. They're just bodies with stats. So if you're looking for Baldur's Gate kind of story with heavy dialogue and branching choices, Dungeon Siege isn't that. It's more of a hack and slash road trip with light story dressing. And honestly, that's fine. It's a game you play more for the journey, rather than for the plot twists. Sound design though, pretty good. The music is sweeping and orchestral, giving you that big fantasy adventure feel. Sound effects are crunchy and satisfying, from sword clashing to fireball explosion. And the voice acting, well, there's not much to say about that. Just the occasional line here and there, but that's okay because you're busy clicking on the enemy anyway. Performance-wise, this game was a bit of a hog back in the day. Still is actually, because the optimization is terrible of this game. I have quite a good PC compared to the old one, but sometimes it's just lagging. Maybe it's just because this game is very old. Back then, if you had a Pentium 4 with a GeForce card, oh man, it was like sorcery. Watching that world loaded endlessly with no stops was a flex you showed to your friends. One thing that doesn't always hold up is the combat pacing. Since your characters auto-fight, sometimes you just watch as they swing away for minutes at a time. It can feel kind of hands-off, like you're more a babysitter than a hero. The fun is building your team, finding good gear and seeing them mow down hordes of enemies. But if you are looking for intense, skill-based fights, it's not really that. It's more chill, more about the big picture than the small details. And then there's multiplayer. Yep, Dungeon Siege had online play. Actually, the most amount of time I spent playing with a friend on multiplayer map, which is different from a single player. It's more like a campaign, shorter version with its own objectives. It's too bad that you cannot play online map anymore. Maybe there is a way, but I couldn't find a way to make it work. It wasn't huge as something like Diablo's 2 Battle.net, but it was nice bonus. And of course the game had quite a big mod support. Fans made all sort of crazy maps, tweaks and expansions, keeping it alive long after the official campaign ended. Speaking of expansions, Microsoft did release Dungeon Siege Legends of Arana in 2003. It added new content, new areas and even more loot. It was basically more of the same, which fans were fine with. Later sequels came too, like Dungeon Siege 2 and eventually Dungeon Siege 3, though by then the magic kind of faded. But that first game, there was something special about it. Looking back, Dungeon Siege was a real time capsule of early 2000s PC gaming. Big worlds, lots of clicking, technical ambition and just enough story to keep you going. It wasn't perfect, but it was addicting, and it gave you that feeling of going on a long adventure where anything could happen around the next corner. Does it hold up today? Well, yes and no. The seamless world is still impressive, though modern PCs and modern games made it a cliché. The graphics are dated but still charming in that chunky fantasy way. The combat can feel slow and repetitive compared to newer games, but the sense of progression, building a party and just walking through the world without loading breaks still feels great. If you're into old school RPGs, it's worth trying, especially with mods to fix some rough edges. So yeah, Dungeon Siege. It might not be the deepest RPG, but it got a charm of its own. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed this review, and please don't forget like and subscribe.